Okay, so that's really me for the announcements. If you want to add any comments about what I've just said about the nature of the call, you can email me info@sharonlawson.co.uk, or you can put it in chat, or any way you want to do it. Okay, so that's my announcements done. And also we're finishing absolutely at 9 o'clock because I'm watching the second half of the England game. So I'm not going over today. You'll all be very pleased to hear. So you got to have some fun in your life, right? We've all been missing some fun. So a little bit of football fun for me at the end. So I had some questions submitted already. So I'm going to answer those first. And then Alice, I think you had a question as well. But I'm going to answer these first, and they are on the subject of heaven and the kind of help we get. So the first question was, the question is to me, do I believe in a mystical side of heaven? And this is going to sound a bit like semantics, but I don't believe in it because I have direct experience of spirit. I communicate with spirit. I'm aware of. I have chats with spirit. So it's not about having a belief in spirit, but I do. But I wouldn't call it heaven. I would call it just energetic world or spirit world. And the reason I don't call it heaven is because it has a connotation that when we talk of heaven, we talk about hell, and there is no such thing as physical hell. We come from the same source, where we are which is loving. We are love in this lifetime, and we return back to the same source, which is love as well. So there is another energetic sphere, if you like, an energetic world, which if you want to call heaven, you can do. But to me, there's no duality. So it's not like there's another place you could go instead. Everyone goes back to the same place. So do I believe in it? Yeah, because I have direct experience of it. And that's kind of what the spiritual path is about. It's about experience rather than belief. Spiritual world is experiential. So you have that experience, and then you don't need to create a belief. It's just a knowing. So yes to that question. And then the second question that's related, they're all related, these four questions. Does mystical support intervene when we allow it? So whether it be the universe, if you want to call it the universe, God, guides, angels, archangels, anyone else you might want to help, ask for help. No one intervenes as such. They kick your butt from time to time, but they don't intervene per se. The only time they intervene is when you ask. So because otherwise it interferes with free will. So if you ask for help, you receive help. If you ask, it is given. So do you receive help? If you ask, then yes, you can receive it. The difficulty with humans is that we tend to want the answer to be a certain way. We have certain expectations of what it should look like, when it should show up, how it should be. And then if it doesn't show up in that way, we think the help hasn't been given, but the help has been given. But it's not like a spiritual Amazon. And you don't sort of put an order in and say, can I have that? And then the universe just gives it to you. It doesn't work like that. But if you're asking for help, it is actually, the universe is very supportive. It's very loving, and it wants to help you. If you ask, it will help you. But the way I find is best is if you kind of ask for things, like if you ask, and sometimes it is just, you ask, you forget you've asked, and then the universe sends something to you in a very uncomfortable way. So for example, I might say, I want to know the nature of unconditional love. And I use this example a lot because I did ask for it. And the universe doesn't send you the most loving, unconditional person so you can learn it off them. They send you the worst person they can think of so that you can feel it for yourself. You can develop it yourself. So how the universe sends you things is very different sometimes to what you think you're asking for. But if you ask, it is given, and especially for things like clarity. And so the next question as well here is, so can this kind of mystical support bring you like gifts? They can, but the gifts are metaphysical rather than physical. If you want to manifest something, it's better to try and co-create it, is the way I would say. It's easier to co-create the physical things. If that's what you want, then you manifest that yourself. And so is it sort of their job to be at our beck and call? The spirit world, that they can just help us and answer all our minor questions? And the answer is yeah. They're not restricted by time or by helping just one person. So yep, you can ask them for everything. It's not really their job, but they do it willingly. And outside of being ascended or co-creating, can we have mystical intervention? I struggle with the word intervention. You can have mystical help. And it's not dependent on how ascended you are. If you ask, it is given. It doesn't really matter. The universe is loving. It loves everyone equally. If you ask, it is given. That's as simple as it is. So the only difference, and I know where that kind of question is coming from, is we talk often about raising our vibration and co-creating and things like that. And that's wonderful. And that's great. It just means that you're more receptive and more open, and maybe you're even able to have a greater, deeper communication with spirit at that higher vibration. But can anyone ask? And can everyone be given? Yeah, because it all comes from the same place. And there's no favoritism. I've said this before. There's no favoritism or hierarchy in the universe. We're all loved equally. So, right. Those are all the questions that were asked in advance. Alice, did you want to ask a question? I've got a bit of it. I've got some notes from what you asked previously, but do you want to ask?
Well, I think for me, I'm just trying to figure out where all the pieces go together. Mm-hmm. Spirit, mind, body, higher self. What is our energetic body, and how does it relate to all of those things? And where that's kind of coming from is I've spent most of my life hiding and contracting myself, and and now I'm trying to expand into myself and maybe perhaps farther. And as I practice, it feels like it's all coming out from my heart. Mm-hmm. But I don't really understand how it all fits together and how to connect to the field of everything. And, maybe it's just energetics 101. I don't know.
Okay. So, yeah. So first of all, I know that hiding, and I think anyone who's had any kind of difficulty in childhood or just some dysfunction in their lives, that hiding is a quite natural thing, right? So when we're coming out of hiding, it's a bit like, well, how do I not hide? How do I be the person that I know I'm meant to be, and take up my place in the world? And you're quite right. It kind of is all about the heart in a way. It's the mind, body. We're given a mind, body, spirit, like on the most basic level. So we've got three tools in which to enjoy the life that we've been given, right? So we have mind, body, and spirit. And when we're talking about expanding or taking our place, or kind of becoming more of who we truly are, more aligned, it's really about spirit. It's really about spirit. So knowing that you are worthy, knowing that you have a great contribution to give, no matter how big or small, it's still a great contribution. Being able to not judge ourselves and judge our actions and judge everything we do, so that we can function well in the world without always having to second guess and say, oh, that was right, that was wrong, this is good, this is bad. And without having all that judgment, we kind of can then stop having all these fears, right? Because a lot of fears and stuff come out of a judgment. So, you know, this is all kind of the practice of kind of self-love, self-worth, non-judgment, so that, you know, these fears that we have, which are mind fears and that keep us limited, because it's the mind that keeps us limited. The mind is quite limited by its nature. It's limited because the mind is limited to its experiences in this lifetime only, whereas spirit is not limited to its experiences in this lifetime only. So it's more expansive, right? And it's loving and it's non-judging and it knows your greatest potential. So that's why we go to kind of the spirit side of things for this kind of stuff, because the mind is limited and it will limit you. And the only reason it limits you is because it's scared and it's trying to keep you safe. So how do we expand more? How do we take up our space? It's about really to stop listening to the mind, or not letting the mind dominate by its limitations, and then just living more from spirit, right? So we are kind of more embodying all of that. So it is more spirit than, it's definitely not mind, because the mind will limit us. And so it's a really nice, what happens is that it becomes a bit more fearless, less fearful, because because when you have a lot of fears, you naturally limit yourself, right? So, and you think, you know, the reason why we sometimes overprotect ourselves and why we play a bit small is because we're scared of other people's reactions, or we're scared of the unknown, or we're scared of uncertainty. And those fears are trying to protect us. But what happens is that those fears then limit us. It stops protecting us and it kind of limits us. So when we start to take some of those fears away, we can kind of more step into the flow of life without those fears. And then we can play, we can start playing a lot more. And so I'll tell you a little quick story. I volunteered once because a friend was learning energetic NLP. And so they said they wanted some volunteers, and so I went along so that they could practice, so the people on the course could practice energetic NLP. And I already done some quantum touch and some healing already, and I showed up and I volunteered, and they were like, oh my God, like we can't get through, there's a barrier, and I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm a naturally very protective person because of I've had trauma in the past. So at the time I was kind of like, I have this like wall up of energy. So I'm like, nope, no, nothing's coming through for me. And there was this one point where they did it, and I said, I'm so sorry. And I kind of took the energetic wall down. But the guy who was running energetic NLP is a guy called Art Giza, and he was sort of going through and doing a meditation, and then I felt like his face was right in front of me. And I was like, he was on the other side of the room, but energetically his face is right in front of me. And he said, he was sort of started talking, and he was saying, you know, we don't have to protect ourselves so much, we just learn how to dance with other people's energies. And that was a real eye-opener for me. As soon as he said it, I realized how true that was. And when it relates into power, it's like, well, if you're scared of the world, you're scared of what people might say, you're scared of how people might react, is that we feel like we need to protect ourselves from others, and that's a place of lack of power. We feel powerless then, and then we start to feel more vulnerable. But actually, when we start to live from a place of greater power, we kind of go, well, so what if somebody says something mean, or so what if somebody does this? It's okay. We stop judging all those experiences and say, well, you know, people act from unhealed hurt all the time, and it's okay. It's got nothing to do with me. And so we stop being less protective, and we start being more open, because we no longer feel that we need protecting anymore, and it's okay to go out into the world and we just dance. And I quite like that idea. We're just dancing with everybody's energies, and once you start to try that, it's actually really nice. And you kind of go, oh, I don't need to hide anymore. I don't need to protect myself too much. My mind is there for danger, but that's all it. Apart from that, I'm just going to dance around the world. Does that answer anything?
Yes, that's lovely, actually. Um, so where does our higher self come into that? Is that kind of relating to spirit then?
Yeah.
Is
So it's
it
kind of like you've got so the way I look at it, the easiest way of putting it is like you've got your spirit that kind of lives inside of you, if you like, or technically we
mhm,
live inside a spirit, but that's for another
yeah,
day. um, we have a spirit inside of us. um, it is connected to our higher self, which is not connected to the mind. So it's connected to higher knowing, higher wisdom, right? And then the way of looking at is that the higher self acts as a conduit between that and your soul. And your soul is the one that keeps going round and round in different lifetimes. So it's a it's more like a access point. It's the closest point of access for most people to access inner wisdom or higher knowing or whatever you want to call it. But you don't,
so
it's
where's that in the field that you access when you're going when you're trying to get your knowing? That would be your higher self?
I don't think it really matters.
When people are talking about the field, yeah. I know that's kind of the mind, the brain, the
The
mind
thing,
coming back
the
in
thing
trying to
is,
figure it
yeah, the
out.
mind just
But
kind of wants a linear idea of where everything is, but there isn't really a linear, like for
yeah,
ages, I would just ask a question and an answer would come back. And it never occurred to me to ask, where's it coming from?
where did it
It's only
come from?
it's only when somebody said to me, who gave you that answer? And I'm like, oh, I don't know. So then I would ask. And that's how I got to know Elizabeth more, because it was always Elizabeth, my guide, who was always answering for me. I was like,
Right.
I'm
Yeah, and then
sorry.
there's guides as well. There's guides, and then there's your higher self, and then there's your soul and your spirit, and there's a whole big
Yeah.
crowd of things. Yeah.
I mean, the way the I what I would say is that even if it's a guide, even if it's an angel, even if it's an archangel, even if it's a being from another galaxy, it's all still
Mhm.
spirit, it's all still universe, we're all still from the oneness, and that's just like a differentiation that we have to help us understand. But ultimately, it's all connected to the source. So
Right.
people get quite caught up in, oh, I talked to a I talked to an archangel, I've got the ear of an archangel, or I've got and people can get quite egotistical as well about who they speak to. And, oh, look, my guide is an ancient person, and, oh, I've got a indigenous guide, and I've got a this guide, and it doesn't really
Right.
make any difference. They appear to you as you need them to. My one's called Elizabeth. Nothing fancy, but she's lovely. But she's
Yeah.
really just an extension of me. She talks to me like I talk to people. So she's kind of like an extension of myself. She comes to me in the way that I
Mhm.
talk, so that I can receive it much more easier. um but
Okay.
it's just all higher wisdom. It's you don't need to worry about the hierarchy, because there's not really a hierarchy. It's just like a way for us humans to kind of understand that there is something that can respond back to us with help.
Okay. I
Yeah, I
think.
mean, like, because, like, so for example, we've got like different energetic bodies, and we've got different bodies. And if you want to, you could probably find someone who can tell you what every single energetic body ultimately means, but
Mhm.
don't really need to know about it too much. um they all kind of are interlinked, and they all kind of work on some level. I had a 7 bodies detox done by the universe, and it was really painful, and I wouldn't recommend it. The first one was really painful because it was the physical level, and I didn't even know what the other 7 were. I didn't know what the rest of them were. But then through the course of the thing, it was like, oh, okay, this one's energetic, this one's mental, this one's physical. Oh, okay, and then there are others. And you know you don't have to worry about all of that. You can just live your life and be happy, and it's okay. The wisdom can come in
Yeah.
many different ways, but it's all wisdom.
Okay. I think I get it
Hmm.
as
Okay.
much as I'm going to get it for now. Yeah.
Well, the thing is, it's the reason I don't want to sound flippant about it. The reason I'm saying it like that is, if you're religious, you would talk about it in a different way, and you would name things in a different way. If you were spiritual, non-religious, you would talk about it the same things and the same experience in a different way. We just give it different labels. If you were a quantum physicist, you would talk about the same thing potentially, but in a slightly different way. So it's all kind of just labels
Right.
that we're giving it, and we kind of give it a differentiation because we want to understand it, because we think if we understand it, it will be clearer and life will be easier. But actually, it's just we come from a loving universe. It wants to help us. We can ask for help, and and we can
And
get
it doesn't matter
guidance.
who we're asking. It doesn't matter if we're asking
Yeah,
our higher self or spirit or um, the great slug. Um,
yeah.
it's all going to the same place.
It's all going to the same place. It's just the
Yeah.
way we differentiate it. At the moment, a lot of people know I have a guide called Elizabeth. Um, I talk to her like she's another person, just a friend. She actually went in, so she used to be external, then she kind of came internal, and now she sort of said, "Oh, I'm not helping you so much anymore because you've got new teachers." So she's around, but I don't speak to her as much.
Mm.
Um, and so it's just things change. Sometimes you have a guide to, like, Elizabeth has been with me a long time and she's still there, but she's not really there to answer all my questions anymore. So things move on. You get different things. So
And yeah.
um I was saying this earlier today, and it always holds true, right? When you're talking about anything to do with the spiritual experience and the spiritual path, we have to hold things very lightly. We're not really attached to anything, so it's kind of
Mhm.
like we can get really bogged down with mind labels of things and categories and different things, but actually it's all just spirit, and it's all coming from the place of love. So
Okay.
yeah. Um, any other questions? I'm checking the chat box as well, but if there's any other questions, if anyone wants to ask anything. Tanya, you asked how to ask for help from spirit. Um, uh, Literally just ask as if they're another person in the room. Just ask, you can just say, ask, can I receive something for my highest good? It depends on what you're asking for, but I would say that you don't have, there's no set. My husband just shouted the football score. That is his job for the first half. Sorry. um the how you ask is really, it can be messy. You don't have to ask perfectly. The universe doesn't mind. It kind of knows what you're asking anyway, so it can kind of tell. So when I ask, I usually I ask quite big questions. So I like, what's the true nature of unconditional love? What's the true nature of this? Can you show me what this really means, or I'd like to experience this. Um, um, and you can kind of ask like that. Or if you ask, you can ask for things like a material, but what we tend to say, in manifestation, you can manifest it yourself. If you don't feel you're able to manifest it, you can ask for some help. But it's good to kind of say, can I have this or better? Because our minds are very limited. What we think we want is not necessarily what we need, and the universe will bring in the closest that it can for what you're asking for your highest good that is in alignment with you, but it won't necessarily always give you what you want. So yeah, it's like the Rolling Stones song. I'll give you what you need, not necessarily what you want, but it's the closest it can get to helping you, so it'll give you that. I got lots of experiences of that as well. Getting something that's not quite what you asked for, but it's pretty damn good because it's close. Okay. All right. I don't think there's any more questions in the chat box.
I have one more
Yeah.
if there's time.
Yep.
I've been earthing since the weather's been so wonderful, every day, and I have to go and lay down afterwards, and I've never experienced it that way before. Usually, I'll do like an hour and I'll read a book, or I'll just sit with my neighbor's Japanese maple, and then I'll come back and I'll feel energized and happy. And now, lately, it's just been like I have to go to bed. I'm nauseated. I'm dizzy. Have any ideas?
Uh, Off the top of my head, no, but let
No.
me see if let me see. That seems quite unusual. Let
It
me
does.
give me a sec. Let me see. Okay, so we can talk about it off the call, but at the moment,
Okay.
all I can really hear is that there's something happening at the poles, not the POLES, North South poles. There's something energetically happening at the poles, which might be what you're picking up on. But it's not related to you specifically, but you're picking up on something that might be energetically that might be hard energetically for you to absorb, or you may not be needing to, you shouldn't, maybe not wanting to absorb it, but you're picking up on something, and it's to do with the poles and energy at the poles.
Interesting.
Mm.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Otherwise, we will move on to the healing section. No? Okay, good. All right. So, for those who more new to the calls, what happens is that I ask everybody to set an intention for what they want from the energy. So we set an intention always in the present tense, never in the future tense. Always in the present tense, because that's where the healing happens and the future hasn't happened yet. And so if you use the future tense, you will get, the universe hears you want the condition of it happening in the future, not now. So present tense, positively stated. We're not saying what we don't want. We're always saying what we do want from all the possibilities in life. What do we do want? And then as it is kind of quantum touch healing, it is, I'll raise my vibration, and then I will basically go through, I'll do a group intention. I'll set a group intention, and I'll go through everyone on the call as well with checking what everybody wants, and I will add that intention into the healing as well. I'll do that internally, obviously. And I usually add some kind of sound healing, so I'll let you know before I'm starting any sound healing. When I do vocal sound healing, it's usually quite loud, so I'll move this out of the way a little bit because it'll be quite loud otherwise. But usually either tuning forks or vocal sound healing, and we'll finish at 9. So I'll let you know when we're finished. So any questions before we start about the healing? No, all good. Everyone happy? Okay. Right. Okay. Right. So if you want to go ahead and set an intention for what you would like internally. And I will do the same on my side. So I'll just be using the tuning fork. You'll be able to hear in a moment. 528 hertz frequency. I'm going to just begin some sound healing that's vocal. Okay, just the healing coming to an end now. Whenever you're ready, coming back into the room gently in your own time. Okay, if anybody wants to share from the healing, please do. Would that be in chat, or if anybody wants to say anything, then please feel free. It's nice sometimes to share our experiences. Otherwise, yeah, no pressure if you don't want to. Okay, well, thank you everyone for coming. And I hope you like the idea of the new format. I will read all the comments in the chat box and take it all in once I've had a chance to read everything and just see Thanks, Alice. And I'll put a notice up in the newsletter as well, just to sort of let everybody know about the new format. And yeah, have a lovely day, everyone. Have a lovely evening, morning, and yeah, I'm now going to go cheer on the football.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Sharon.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.